the two of us here, only one of us has been Time Magazine's Humanitarian of the Year. If you can virtually clap, big round of applause for Chef Jose Andres.
It's so good to hear your voice. You always bring a lot of joy, and I cannot wait to give you a hug.
Let's get right into it. I mean, for the people that might have just heard of the World Central Kitchen on the news, or might not be familiar that it's an organization that you and your family and your wife really started together, how did this all come about? People know you, oh, this chef with restaurants all over the world, but now all of a sudden they show you in, you know, you're showing up in hurricanes, in earthquakes, in fires, and you name it. So how did this all happen?
Obviously, it's very difficult for me to talk about World Central Kitchen without talking about me as a chef in my for-profit business. My mom and my dad, they were nurses.
Yeah.
My uncle was a doctor. He was the director of the medical at Ford in Spain and for the rest of the Ford factories in Europe. My aunt was a pharmacist. Still, many of my cousins, they have the pharmacies that my aunt opened. So I've been in this kind of mayhem of health professionals in one way or another. My mom, my dad always show me that they will always go beyond their duty. I saw many of their friends in the hospitals. My mom and my dad, they work in the same hospital and they have different turns. So the hospital was the place that they will exchange my brothers and I. So I spend a lot of time sometimes in emergency, and I spend sometimes in other departments of the hospitals. And I always saw nurses going beyond health, all our health workers going beyond their duty, reading a book to a child. My mom and my dad will always love to entertain at home. If something I learned from my dad and my mom is that they love to cook and they love to feed my brothers and I, but they love to feed anybody else. My father will cook, especially on weekends. And my father will cook a big pot of paella, the big rice dish from Spain. My father always told me that if more people were coming, was never a problem, because the way to solve that problem was only throwing more rice to the pan. You see, some of the big problems have very simple solutions. Obviously, I came to America after serving in the Spanish Navy. I was 1 year and a half sailing the world in a tall ship, 4-mast.
I think you came under the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, right? When you came into New York for the first time?
But it's funny because the first time I think I ever got sick in my life was after I ate in the streets of Abidjan, Ivory Coast. And I was almost for 30 days on my way to Rio de Janeiro in bed because of whatever I got eating. And the long story short was that in the process of watching my mom feeding, of traveling the world in this tall ship that began showing me that many people didn't have the same opportunity I got. I arrived to New York on that ship on 30th Street on the west side. The many of you that you've been to Manhattan, can you believe that 30 years later, I opened my biggest restaurant in Hudson Yards on 30th Street? So 30 years ago, I docked on 30th Street port. And 30 years later, I have a restaurant in the heart of New York, the city that welcomed me many years ago. When you talk about the American dream, I can share with you that this, to a degree, is a young boy that came with dreams to America, and where I was, thanks to the help of many, shared the American dream. For me, the least I can be doing, and this gets to World Central Kitchen, is make sure that that same opportunity I was given, I can work in giving that same opportunity to others. World Central Kitchen happened after Haiti. Haiti, I went to Port-au-Prince. I already spent 25 years working in a soup kitchen in DC, where I saw that a plate of food can give hope to people, making sure that we don't waste food, but more important, making sure we don't waste the lives of people. In the process, we make our communities better. With that very simple idea, when Haiti happened, I was with my good friend, Anthony Bourdain, no longer with us, and Eric Rippert in Cayman Island, celebrating, having a cocktail, scuba diving, celebrating life. At the same time, Port-au-Prince was under one of the biggest earthquakes we have. Within weeks, I landed in Haiti, and I saw how my profession to feed the few could be the same profession I could put at the service of feeding the many. In the process of learning, by going there, I saw that I could be part of the solution. Since then, World Central Kitchen was created. In this pandemic alone, we are on our way to 40 million meals. We've done close to 3,000 restaurants in America that has helped us at one point serve 300,000 meals a day. We've served in every fire, every hurricane. I responded to Beirut when the explosion in Lebanon destroyed parts of Beirut. We've been feeding hundreds of hospitals, elderly homes, and in the process, we've been keeping everybody safe. I just came back from Honduras, Guatemala, and Colombia. And the long story short is this. I am very proud to be a cook. I am so proud that my father and my mother, being nurses, also taught me how to cook and fall in love with cooking. And I love that this same profession, again, allows me to have a place to belong through my restaurants, but also allows me to have the way to help others, to help the voiceless, to help people after disasters.
Yeah, I mean, I find it, and you and I have had this conversation many times, and it was good that, excuse me, people got a little bit of the background, coming to the United States at a young age, having a family that cooked, and this is all, one chapter of your life, and you open your first restaurant and multiple restaurants. But I think obviously, just as a human being, when Haiti happened, that was really the defining moment. People have moments in their life where something changes, and you just didn't miss a beat. But what it's become from when Haiti to now, even if it's fires in Northern California or Beirut or COVID, and the last time you and I had a conversation, you were feeding people, in Spain, not far from where you grew up. And you talk about the amount of people that the World Central Kitchen is feeding. I won't mention any names, but you're doing more than most governments right now, which is unbelievable, the amount of work that the organization does. But still, at the same time, I think there is a perfect balance that you can have the World Central Kitchen and do the good that it does all over the world, but you can also do which is what you love to do, which is also cook and get on the line sometimes. And I know right now, like most restaurants, they're all closed. But at the same time, it's all about feeding people, just under very, very different circumstances, that's for sure. But do you even see yourself going back into a 3 Michelin starred restaurant? I know you love it because I know you personally, but is that a tough question to ask? Would you like to be in Beverly Hills or Washington, D.C. or New York? I think most people want to see you in military gear in Beirut, feeding people that need it.
Listen, I am a cook, right? And if we see your company, guys, I don't want to pronounce it because I don't want you to fire me because I cannot pronounce the name of your company, Genentech.
Genentech.
I have a conversation with Mayor Pete Buttigieg, and I still don't know how to pronounce his last name. I am so FUCK, and now I have your name, and I'm like, I am a poor immigrant, okay? My accent is terrible. But, I was reading, obviously, getting ready for you guys, and you discover, you develop, you manufacture, and you commercialize. In so many ways is what my profession does, right? I don't know if you know, guys, but I with my friend Ferran Adrià, probably one of the biggest minds, not only in cooking, but one of the biggest creative minds on this century, one of the most creative restaurants ever. We created a class in Cambridge at the School of Physics. We partnered with 2 professors, and all of a sudden they will never have an undergrad go to learn physics. All of a sudden you're teaching physics through cooking, and you have hundreds of students ready to join. So, number one, obviously, for us creative chefs, you need to discover. And for me, discovery, I think we all need to move away from our comfort zone. I'm sure you always go to the same symposiums and conferences where other scientists and other doctors and other researchers go. That's fine. Obviously, you need to do that because you need to learn what others in your profession do. But in my way, if I go to the farmer's market every day, oh, this eggplant smells so well. Look at these tomatoes. I remember going and doing those romantic shows about the farm. The moment I move away from my traditional places, going to other restaurants or going to the farm or going to the farmer's market, and I go to work with scientists in Cambridge and MIT, and I discover about the power of water surface tension, all of a sudden the new dish shows up because I understand water surface tension. And I'm even able to co-sign a paper on the issue. I can create amazing dishes only by understanding the power of water and what happens in its surface. If I go to work in Seattle with El Chihuli, the master that blows glass like nobody, all of a sudden I'm again putting myself away from my comfort zone. I can be creating. All of those things in my private sector, in my profession, which is not my profession, it's my hobby, allows me to use the same creativity to apply in disasters. In the Bahamas, we were able to feed 80,000 people across 14 islands. And you know why we did it? The same way that in your company you commercialize. To me, commercializing is the closest thing to distribution, right? If I have the food, but I don't distribute the food to the hungry, who cares if I have the food? Until it doesn't get to the people that really need it, you will not be able to say that you've been successful. To have the assets doesn't equal success by bringing food to the people that need it. In Bahamas, we were able to have 6 helicopters, 1 boat with 2 landing pads, and I was able to create a system of distribution, bringing almost 80,000 meals a day.
Yep.
But you know what I was the proudest? That because we were there, next to the people, not planning, because let me tell you one thing. If you plan too much, you fail. Why? Because life never goes as you plan. In emergencies, if you plan too much and you put it in a book, if you train your teams to plan, when things don't go as planned, the teams freeze. We embrace complexity. We say no plan is better. No having a plan and being ready to respond to the emergencies in real time and adapt in real time will be more powerful than planning too much. That trains people to don't think on their own. But you know what I was very proud? That because we were there every day, we were able to do 50 medical evacuations in the main only hospital in Marsh Harbor in Abaco. All of a sudden, who was going to tell me that a group of cooks was going to be doing medical evacuations? That a group of cooks, because we had the distribution systems, sometimes we go every day and we learn what locals need when they don't have pharmacies open. All of a sudden, in the way of bringing food, more often than not, we are bringing medicine. Sometimes, like the other day in Honduras, we learned that somebody that is surrounded by water and cannot move needs somebody to help them to change because has issues with their kidneys and all of a sudden we are able to bring a nurse in real time to help that person receive the proper health care that it needs. You see, at the end, in the process of feeding every day and being next to the people, we are able to create a distribution system that allow us to, in real time, bring other people that bring other reliefs that we don't know about, but that because we know where the people are and what the people need, in the process of bringing food, we can also very often bring other people to bring other types of relief, like generators and chainsaws, or medical evacuations, or medicines, or healthcare workers. In the process of creating the system of distribution, we do more than food. We give this kind of opportunity to the system to help the people. And that's what I'm very proud of.
Well, I'm going to add right there because it's so much that you just said, and for everyone that's really paying attention, sometimes the biggest problems have the simplest solutions. So you just said you have all this food and you need to get it to the people. You don't need 37 government agencies to tell you how to get it to the people. People just live through a natural disaster of whatever, and you guys just execute and make it happen. And I'm going to follow that up with, you talked about it's great to have a plan on a piece of paper, but putting that into action. And as the great Mike Tyson would say, this is a very famous quote, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And that plan can change very, very quickly. And like you said, the adaptability of what you and the World Central Kitchen has to do around the world. All of a sudden, you're a chef in your fancy restaurants. Next thing you know, you're talking about executing helicopters and boats and feeding people in Honduras. It is nothing short of amazing. But once again, like you just said, some of these huge problems have a much simpler solution, but nobody can get anything done, right, if they're hungry. Nobody can do anything if they're hungry.
This is correct, but for me, for example, in this pandemic, it's been a very big learning.
Yeah.
You know, one of the early inspirations that helped me be where I am today, across the restaurant I opened, I hope many of you, you've been to my restaurants. I hope you do. But my first was Jaleo, the Spanish tapas restaurant. Okay, tapas, not topless. Tapas restaurant. And Tapas. And across the street from Jaleo on 7th and E, 4 years later after I opened, they were doing construction and they discovered that across the street from my restaurant was the apartment of one person that became very important during the Civil War. It's a person that created what they call the Missing Soldiers Office. That person was Mrs. Clara Barton, like my mom, a nurse, the woman that created a simple system to provide relief to the wounded soldiers during the American Civil War. The woman that created the system to make sure that families will find their loved ones and know what happened to them. And the person that single-handed created the American, in a way, the American Red Cross. This, to me, was a fascinating way to see how we could be, obviously, people of, if a nurse like her, almost alone, was able to create this amazing system, cooks like us, what we cannot be creating. At the end, you mentioned it before, big problems have very simple solutions. But let me tell you why I was very happy. Now that we are taking, I don't want to pronounce the name of the company again, or you are all going to fire me. You're never going to bring me.
Genentech.
Genentech. Genentech sounds very much like gin and tonic. Next year, for the holidays party, we need to do gin and tonic Genentech. Okay, I hope that's a good joke and everybody understood it. But can I tell you one thing that you guys will appreciate being in the business you are? Take a look, a group of cooks, what we did. You saw images in the video, right? We were feeding the cruise ship. We began in February feeding in Yokohama, Japan. Why we go to Yokohama to feed the cruise ship? We went because we have a lot of experience in cholera. I've been feeding people through cholera in Haiti. I've been feeding people through cholera in Mozambique. In the places we are, nobody gets cholera. In the refugee camps we are, nobody gets cholera. Because we know the simple protocols, clean water, washing hands. Nobody where we are ever gets cholera, even in other areas may happen. I never knew that this prepared me for what's about to happen. I began following coronavirus, COVID-19, the 31st of December of 2019. Why? Because I'm a guy that always thinks about emergencies that has to do with food. I began following very closely what was happening in China. One of my best friends was the ambassador of Mexico in China during 6 years. Because that, I was able to go often there. But he is an expert on China issues, and he was keeping me in the know about how the Chinese government was responding to coronavirus. This for me was very important because I was able to do this. We began in Yokohama. Then Governor Newsom called us. We went to San Francisco. The images you saw there on the video was my teams, our teams feeding the men and women inside. And you see how professionally we were doing with all the equipment and the hazmats to make sure we were protected, but more important, we were protecting the people we were serving. This is what we created in February. We developed Muskie. Muskie is the mascot that obviously is telling us how to behave. And in the absence of guidance of how to behave in COVID-19, we created an entire health protocol that is what kept all my teams healthy through this pandemic. We've been in more than 10 countries in this pandemic. We've been to hundreds of cities. We've been in planes, in military planes, in boats, in ships, in trucks, in you mention it. And I'm very proud that all the teams of World Central Kitchen, none of my teams got COVID-19 to this day. 9-10 months after the pandemic, we began responding. The 3,000 restaurants we opened, we kept every restaurant open only because we began following protocol. We began following the experts' feedback. We began doing the things in the absence of information, thinking like this could be a very terrible pandemic that could even kill you only by watching at the virus, looking at somebody. By doing this, a group of cooks, we show that by following the guidance of the experts, we could be feeding people in the process of keeping everybody healthy. We could be feeding elderly homes, maintaining those elderly homes safe. We could be feeding homeless, keeping those homeless safe. This, if anything, is why I'm the proudest, that we've been able to do 35 million meals in the process, keeping thousands of people healthy. And it's not by luck, it's by wearing the mask, washing our hands. I went to many hospitals and I will clean myself with liquid before and after to make sure I will not bring the COVID to the hospital, and I make sure I will not bring, in any case, the virus to any place else. So this is why I was happy that we created Muskie, and that Muskie kept us safe. And in the process, well, one cocktail in between. I've been drinking a lot of cocktails in this pandemic. I don't know you guys, but at the end of the day, I needed a cocktail. I think the cocktail is what kept me going here and there.
Here and there, that's for sure. All right, Chef, we're going to wrap it up with one more question. I think it's kind of appropriate. I mean, I can ask you 30 more questions, and we'll go back to paella just very, very, very quickly. I love that you always say, if you are lost, share a plate of food with a stranger, right? It's that simple. And you'll find out who you are. And I think, why don't you wrap up with that, and we're going to get on with the show.
I hope all of you guys will agree with me that in a moment that we are talking about building walls, I will say that I'm a guy that I'm learning that what we need and what I believe is that we need shorter walls and longer tables. I do believe that the new American dream is that what must be good for you and your loved ones must be good for all. That the best way I can protect my 3 daughters is not by putting them behind 3 walls. Hey, I'm from Spain. We have a lot of castles. I know a thing or two about castles. Spain was the land of castles. Let me tell you, the people behind the walls of those castles, they didn't last long. I do believe that the best way we can all be doing is making sure that to provide safety for our own is to provide safety and hope for others. And that's what I'm learning. That a plate of food at a time can be showing the way, that a plate of food at a time can be the way forward, and that actually the plate of food is the only thing I know. Many people fed me in my life when I was alone in a foreign city. I've been an immigrant all my life, and you have a beautiful bridge behind you, Billy. I know that immigrants like me, and to a degree we are immigrants because we all born somewhere and we end somewhere else. I've been an immigrant all my life, and what I learned is that immigrants like me, we are bridges to tell the world a very big message, that the people that don't look like you, don't speak like you, don't have the same color of skin or your same religion. They are not your enemy, but that those people are actually the people that are there to enrich our lives, to show us other ways. And if we respect each other, this next to a good plate of food and maybe a cocktail or two, a glass of wine, I do believe we can all together build a better world. So thank you very much, Billy, for having me. Thank you, Viv. Thank you, all of you guys. And
thank you, Jose.
Happy New Year. Happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah ending. Happy Kwanzaa. And I'm a Catholic boy. Merry Christmas to everybody.
And Merry Christmas. Thank you, Chef. Great seeing you again. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. And we'll see you next time. Okay.
Genentech.
Genentech.
Gin tonic. Gin and tonic sounds much easier.
He's still yelling in my ear.
Gin and tonic.
All right. Thank you. Bye. So really simple. You don't need to hear it from me, but the World Central Kitchen is an amazing organization. They execute so quickly all over the world for people in need everywhere.